From the 305 to the 303, welcome to TCSP. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Brian and the Casually Serious Band. So this naked blonde walks into this bar, right, carrying a poodle under one arm and a 6-foot salami under the other, man. The bartender says, I don't suppose you need a drink. And the blonde says, oh, we're on right now. What's up, yo? How's it going, man? What's going on?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
I wanted know a little bit more about what you were saying, but I guess we can finish that later.
Yeah, there's an ending to that joke. We'll definitely get to it, man. Ken, man, you just celebrated a birthday, dude.
I did.
I gotta say, man, that was one of the better parties. No matter how late I was able to stay up or how much I might have drank for someone who doesn't drink.
Whatever the stories are, however they go.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great time, dude. Thank you so much, and happy belated birthday from, I'm sure, everybody in the audience right now, man.
Thank you. Definitely appreciate that. It was a lot of fun. I've never had a live band at a party before. That was pretty cool.
That was definitely pretty rad, man. Pretty rad. So we're here to talk. We're going to lighten up the mood, and like I said a couple times, I'm glad we had a fully lightened mood for your birthday. We were able to enjoy it in spite of things that have been going on lately, and the state of the world. It was a great time to sit back, relax, and have a great time. So
sorry for not live streaming either, because I know we told you all we were going to do that, and that didn't happen. There was this alcohol started early, and we blamed it on technical difficulties, but
that's a broad sweeping generalization in our line of work, and it worked. It worked.
It did. But
there were definitely some things that were technically difficult for us to handle that night. So it wasn't a lie. It wasn't misleading in any way. But
I didn't even try, so I don't know what happened. Honestly, whatever y'all did was great.
Yeah, we struggled, man. You had a tripod, and it was just like one of those weird ones that kind of like move around, and it just wasn't working. And then she actually rigged it with a rubber band, but by that time it was just too much. What is going on? Candyman Goat back. Tammy Freeman, Mannheimer in the house. Brian, what's up? Sarah's in the house. What's going on? Good to see your face as well. Sarah's always repping one of the Cowboys ladies. She's a badass, man. Thank you for always supporting from day one all the stuff I do, from Cannabis Cowboy all the way up to BDG and all that good stuff. But at any rate, we want to have some fun. We want to talk about some stuff that's going to make us laugh, or at least conjure up some awesome memories of laughing at one point. And today we're talking about stand-up comedy, man. Stand-up comedy for me is a huge portion of my life. It started off a long time ago. We both were just talking about, there's a couple records that you and I listened to, probably separately. Me and Dr. Brian and I listened to a couple of those same albums ad nauseum. We can recite them front to back just as you can. And it's just some of those memories. It's like the first time maybe you, for me, I'll go ahead and start off with mentioning Eddie Murphy. And we'll go back to the earlier guys first, but Eddie, that's that famous look for the topic that he can't really talk about right now. Back then, dropping the F-bomb, which really wasn't the F-U-C-K word. It was how he made fun of gay people at the time, which was a completely fine thing to say back then. It's very hard to go back to that comedy and listen to it and not go, oh shit, what'd you just say? But Delirious, Raw, those are some of the greatest comedy albums that I first picked up. And like I was saying, it was like sort of the first time I heard cursing, like outright, like instead of from my mom's voice, from my mom's mouth, or seeing it on TV. It was a comedian deliberately saying these words in order to conjure a feeling from you. And it worked. Eddie Murphy fucking had me. It was just his laugh, everything. It was like, I don't know, man. It's stuck with me forever up until this point. And we can go back. I'll go back to Lenny Bruce. You have anything to say about Lenny?
Well, I was actually going to make a comment about Eddie and you talking about certain things that shouldn't be said or could be said. I mean, George Carlin said that he thinks it's the duty of the comedian to find out where the line is drawn and then cross it deliberately. So that's from Carlin, the master. And that's why I feel like Eddie did that. He did cross the line. And certainly that line is different today than it was then. So he was able to still push it to that. I'm not saying that it's different for what the meanings are. I'm just saying it's different for, I guess, how you're going to get, I don't know, I guess run through the ringer, I guess we can call it in today's world, because back then that really wasn't the case, or the movements weren't big enough to create those kind of issues. But I still feel like that's what he did. He went to that line, he crossed that line deliberately, and the comedian should be able to do that. Carlin.
That's the job. That's the job of the comedian. At any, by any means necessary, get you to laugh, get you to get a reaction out of you that, it wasn't always, I'm sure there's political comedians, maybe like, hey, buddy, what's that guy? Dennis Miller. Like, there's some people that are just so far, like Al Franken. I don't listen to that stuff because I don't get too deep in it. But, there's some people who really have a lot of deep politics in there. But being offensive is what a fucking comedian is supposed to do, for God's sake. I don't honestly, man. And I mean, unless they're like glorifying raping someone or like talking about the torture of children, which no one really does other than maybe one comedian that I will name later. But it's never done like in a malicious way, maybe to get a point across in some way. But I think it's their job, man. I want my comedians to say shit that I can't say, but I always think. You know what I mean? And find a crafty way to do that.
Right. And in a way, because it's an art in of itself, as is music, there's plenty of music that has lyrics about torturing children and doing all types of crazy stuff. And it's not that those musicians are going to go out and do any of those things. And those words often get condemned by people at different levels. But, musicians do that as well within lyrics. And maybe it's easier to hide that than it is when it's just you standing on a stage with a microphone and making comments about somebody. So you're being judged for the kind of person that you are right off the bat. And comics are. Because you're selling yourself right away when you come out on stage more than anything else. Yeah. As soon as you walk out there, everything about what you're doing, you're being scrutinized. And people are trying to see if they're going to actually buy you and what you're saying. And am I going to listen to this person? And are they even funny with what they're saying? And how quickly are they going to be able to make me laugh? So, when you're a comedian, that's all it is. It's, hey, make me laugh. That is your job. And to come into a large crowd of people and try to make everybody laugh is a very difficult thing to do. And I feel like being able to push the envelope works in a lot of cases, but it's not for everybody. And that's why these guys, a lot of these comedians today especially, have followings of people, but they're not hitting the masses like some of the old school guys did.
And I think it's stand-up comedians are sort of like their own brand. So as a cigarette smoker would be someone that says, I always go to Marlboro, or a driver that says, I only drive GMC. There's a lot of fans that gravitate toward a very specific kind of comedian. So you'll have, and I don't want to lump them together, but you'll have a George Carlin and even a Lenny Bruce sort of be lumped together in maybe let's go ahead and say back in the day, a sort of misfit, I don't want to say hippie, a counterculturist for sure, someone who's probably anti-government, anti-authority. They're going to listen to those particular comedians. And when you start talking about legendary Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy, they are obviously going to appeal to the black culture and what the people of color were going through at the time when they're having all these the issues and the jokes. And it was all very much deflection. Black comedy was always, as most comedy is, a deflection of whatever fucking shit you're dealing with at the time. Go somewhere and watch somebody say some shit that may even be talking about what you just came from, but you can still go somewhere and laugh about it. And that's the escape we all want from comedy. At least something that when I first started listening to it, I got hooked on that. I was like, I'll always be listening to the comedians. I hope they're around forever. I don't really know if I thought they would be, but yeah, man, stand-up comedy has been an important part of my life for my entire life, man. As it has been you, man. We're a couple of funny guys, but
And if you even go back to sorry, but Bill Cosby, I mean, because he had humor that obviously we were allowed to listen to before we were supposed to be listening to Eddie Murphy and stuff like that. So
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
can go back to a lot of the stuff that he did, and we all remember these. We could sing the chocolate cake song and all that stuff. I mean, Bill was great with what he did, and his comedy was the exact kind of comedy that was, for that time, I thought was perfect, because it definitely was something different than what was coming out of Richard Pryor's mouth and out of Eddie Murphy's mouth, which I appreciated, but I know not everybody did. So being able to do comedy without without being vulgar is also a completely different monster that you don't see as much today.
I'll tell you what, I'm glad you mentioned that. And this guy's, what I'm trying to do is I listed all these photos sorting, I would guess maybe chronological order, or at least the order that I think they came into my life. I don't really know if I can tell you the first date of all of their first stand-up comedies, but when you're talking about a comic now that is a throwback to Bill Cosby, I urge all of you to look up Nate Bargatze. All right,
that's the guy.
I do not know. I'm glad you know who this guy is. There's a lot of people. I just think Jordan and I stumbled onto him.
Yeah,
I've seen 2 or 3 specials, and I was like, this guy barely said "damn it" maybe once.
Nothing, no bad
never
words.
vulgar. Such a great delivery. It's just, man, I was blown away. I was like, holy shit. It was just so refreshing to be like, wait, this guy's going to curse at some point. He's not. And he's just, his delivery is so impeccable, man. And yeah, if you don't know Nate Bargatze and you're looking for maybe comedy that you can watch with your children, you know, even though he talks about stuff, it's never really nasty or vulgar or edgy. It's so innocent and fucking beautiful, man. Check out Nate Bargatze. But
it's really good.
There's not a lot of comedians like you say, though. Like Bill Cosby was sort of the standout in the middle of all that, simply because of what he was contrasting, like you said, Pryor and Red Fox and the guys that were sort of out there making sure that fuck, dick, fuck, all the time, and fuckity fuck. That's just the way it was with them. Tammy mentioned Robin Williams, and that's definitely
definitely.
Some of these folks that were in comedy troupes or stand up somewhere else, and they kind of blew up on the TV scene and never went back to comedy or stand up comedy but except Robin Williams actually did that after his career in TV and film sort of slid. I remember he had a resurrection, and he was as friggin' amazing as I've ever seen him. He's another one of those guys, man. That's just, you don't get them a lot. They come once in a lifetime, Who else do we have here? Oh, I don't know if any of you folks remember Wendy Liebman. Oh my God, man! Let me tell you, she had this weird. It was sort of a weird thing where she would deliver the joke, and then the punchline would be under her breath. I don't know. She'd be like, "Yeah, so my husband, he is a real killer breath," and she just did these weird jokes, but it was the whole entire routine she did, and it was just so intelligent the way she did it, and she just always smiled the entire time. Her massive face and grill was sort of taken over. But Wendy Liebman, one of the first female comedians that I attached to, just because she was just such a smart ass, man, and I just dug smart ass comedy.
Yeah, no, I think I do remember her, and she was really annoying to me. I have a real problem with, I don't want to get in trouble here, but I don't find a lot of female comics funny. Sorry, Ed, but I don't. I'm not a fan of Sarah Silverman. I'm not a fan of Amy Schumer. I'm not a fan of, there's very few. There are some, but there's very few. I don't know. Don't yell at me.
Well, again, we will probably, there's probably reason for that too. Like if you historically go back
sexist,
to
that's what it is.
No, well, if you go back to the Paula Poundstones, the Brett Butlers, the Ellen DeGeneres, it was all very specific comedy. They weren't able to get out of this box as female comedians. And as we know, Ellen did most of her stand-up as not homosexual. I'm not going to say she did it as heterosexual, but she never spoke about being gay, acting gay, knowing gay people. It was and that's how you kind of know the pressure for female comedians back then was real. It was real weird. It's not until the last 15, 20 years where you'll have women coming out saying what the hell they want to say.
Lisa Lampanelli.
I was just going to say,
that lady makes me laugh. She's
there's
hilarious.
There's no way you can say female comedians don't exist out there. Now she may be an exception, right? No. I'm not. I didn't say that. I don't. Okay. Please don't let me think I just twisted Ken Man's word. I want to just. This is separate from what he said. I've heard people say that. I've heard people actually say that women comedians are not funny at all.
No, I'm not that person.
How do you feel about this person, Amy Schumer?
No, don't find her funny at all.
I know a lot of men that don't find her funny. I was actually at this special. My wife and I went to this special when she told us it was being taped for her Netflix special. I find her to be a freaking riot. And to me, it was never about like a woman being vulgar for the sake of being vulgar. It's really, to me, it's always about how are you vulgar, and how do you hand me vulgar? How do you platter it for me? And she always did it in a way that made me laugh. And the same thing with my wife. But I know a lot of people who did not find her to be funny. Nikki Glaser, I think she's hilarious too. Erwin, good call, man. Like she's pretty friggin' funny, dude. And she falls under that Amy Schumer. Yeah. Let's see, there's a few out there too. Tammy Pescatelli. There's a few that's sort of all along that line, but really no one did it like Lisa Lampanelli. So the thing is like, if you're going to be vulgar, be fucking vulgar, like, you know what I mean? Like she's sort of like the dice, vulgar. The female answer to dice where she didn't care. Like, oh, I'm playing with my husband's balls, like, and then she just does it in such a beautiful way that like she would get laughs before a punchline even hit. But, I think maybe you're right. It's been historically men always, going back to, Richard Belzer, it's all men. And maybe they have a female comedian, but a female comedian, it was always sort of like this, I guess you could say, was sort of like at first a female UFC fighter, like what?
Right.
Like, does that happen? And then all of a sudden, once it happens, you realize, damn, it not only happens, it could be pretty fucking amazing. So yeah, I don't think they had a lot of chances. So what we're seeing right now is the beginning of female comedy, the way we saw the beginning of comedy as a whole back in the day.
I agree. I think I'm overly critical of comedians anyway. So it doesn't matter, honestly, gender. I'm not basing any of my critique on them based on their gender. It's completely, for me, about delivery. Do I believe you? How good of a storyteller are you? And I mean, those are the kind of things that are generally going to get people involved. And there's some that are great at it and can tell a great story and can go on enough that even just the story being told is interesting to listen to before you even get to the funny part. And there's also comics that can just, like Stephen Wright, and just talk under their breath and be completely monotone the entire. I love that you have these pictures as soon as I say stuff. You're awesome. and be completely monotone and keep that same tone the entire show, to be like, how do you listen to that? But it's absolutely hilarious. So it's just different stuff for different people. And some folks could say that's boring. I don't like his humor at all. But, this is why it is such an art, and why it's incredible when a stand-up comedian can sell out huge theaters and arenas. That's just incredible to be able to reach that many people with your comedy. And there's some of these guys that are able to do it. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. 100%. So give me some, what's your favorite Stephen Wright?
Dude,
You're so many.
I mean, for me, it's the way he uses, and it could be a number of things because he does this with a few things, but I'll give you an example. The way he utilizes the harmonica sound out the window of the car, and he'll tell different stories about the car and the different speeds this car may go. And then every time when he holds the harmonica out the window, it's going to sound different. But he just ended that particular joke with the harmonica sounded great. And there's no way I'm going to be able to tell it in any way that's funny, but the way he's able to pull stuff back into his jokes as he tells them is one of the things I find incredible about Stephen Wright in particular, beyond the fact that he's able to stay with that same tone throughout. Very rarely do you see him crack a smile during his comedy. His delivery is incredible, and it's when he does crack that smile, though, it was just that funny, because he rarely makes himself laugh, which I also find funny. I like when a comic can be up there and not laugh at his own stuff or her stuff and try to, make people laugh because they should, or do it by laughing as well. obviously Steven's a master at that, but just watching those little intricacies with some of these guys is really interesting as well.
He didn't really laugh. He kind of just would be like,
yeah, it'd be a smile. Exactly.
He'd blow into the microphone like, that's what you get. That was his giggity, if you will. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, man.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing some names like, okay, so Kevin Smith. Actually, a lot of folks would say, well, what are you talking about? He doesn't do stand-up. He fucking does actually do stand-up. I've seen a couple, and they're pretty damn good. I've seen a spoken word sort of thing, a Q&A thing. No matter what, Kevin Smith's intelligent, so he'll find ways to be funny. I think, and I'll segue into something real quick, but Victor, you said Lucille Ball, Carol Burnett, not really stand-up, but two of the greatest comedic women
actually
of
hilarious.
All time.
Both of them absolutely hilarious women.
We'll let those comments fly because I love those two women. They were my mothers growing up, dude, and
totally.
raised me and taught me how to be funny, dude. So 100%. Thank you for
agree with that.
But yeah, the female comedians sort of it was definitely tough to be in the man's world thing, like you said. But how about this guy, man? Oh my God, man! Like I so jealous when you told me you got to see Mitch Hedberg live, man, out in Miami.
Yes, twice done. It was actually in Fort Lauderdale and in the same venue, but 2 years apart. And like he's absolutely hilarious. Another one with just an incredible delivery. Just being able to go up there and be that character that he is and tell his stories the way he does. Every part of them are funny. He's the kind of comedian that your cheeks are hurting while he's telling a story. He hasn't even gotten anything funny yet because you're already smiling because you know something hilarious is coming. Or
he's smiling the whole time when he's telling that joke.
Exactly. So you're already into it because you're like, he's already smiling. He's telling this thing, so you know something good's coming. But he's absolutely fantastic. Definitely one that went way too soon because his stuff is so original. And yet it could be based on the everyday. And that kind of humor is just, it goes beyond just intellectual humor where somebody's got to have enough intelligence to be able to think about something or a scenario that people are going to be able to relate to, at large, and then be able to turn that into something funny, where he's able to actually take something very simple that you would never even think about and make it hilarious. And just that genius in of itself is why Mitch Hedberg is somebody that if you want to go just laugh now, just after this show, YouTube and go crazy with Mitch Hedberg.
Yeah, we got one. I used to do drugs. I still do drugs, but I used to as well. Like one of those. And then what was the one that you said?
How escalators can never break.
Oh, yeah.
They just become stairs.
Just become stairs. Like I can't
do them as good as you. You're a good impersonator. You need to do the impersonating. So
he just had this cadence. It was always like it was fucking very much like sort of a Bob Dylan song. And I think I heard him. I'm for some reason I'm thinking I saw him in front of the Apollo crowd once. And they fucking loved him, dude. Like he just sort of didn't play. He wasn't like a race comedian. He didn't play, and he really wasn't. He was just sort of like this, and everyone was cool with potheads at the time, and he was the consummate pothead. So it's black, white, Hispanic, whatever. You're smoking cannabis, chances are. So he was able to relate to all these different groups of people, man. And obviously, gone too soon. Drugs are normally a part of comedians' lives. I mean. Wink, wink. I mean, and I'm not to say that I'm a comedian. That's something I wanted to bring up too. I wasn't able to say earlier. I know someone has probably said this to you in your life because you're fucking funny too. And it takes intelligence to be funny sometimes, most of the time. Dumb comedy is still pretty funny, but a lot of people have told me, Bob, you got to go into stand-up, dude. You got to be going to stand-up. And I would always say to them, that's fucking flattering. I go, but I'm not to say that I couldn't do it, but it's a different animal from what you're saying right now. Being able to play off someone who's talking to you in a conversation setting with multiple people around, that's a different thing as being a stand-up comedian. I probably do very well at improv more than stand-up comedy. But, when people say those kinds of things, I think they're just like trying to say you're funny, which is always great to hear. But stand-up comedy, man, I've never been able to do it. I have never had the balls to stand up in front of a stage. with a microphone and just start telling jokes. I don't know. I really would love to do it if I'm being honest, but it's terrifying to think of.
It's crazy because it's, to write material and to have material for stuff like that. It's again, not so much about delivering just a joke straight off the bat. It's being able to tell a story, and it's being able to gain the attention of the audience. So they're so into what you're talking about that, yes, you do have to have a punchline, and yes, it has to be good. But getting to that point and telling that story is a big part of that. And there's some comedians that'll just start just throwing out punchlines. I mean, like crazy. You'll just be getting them left and right. And there's others that'll take their time. And those storyteller comedians, I appreciate a lot, because it takes a lot more to be able to keep your audience and let them know that something gold is coming soon. And it doesn't have to be where you're just going to throw so much out there that, yeah, man, some of it, they're just going to die laughing. Maybe some won't hit at all. But if you throw enough punchlines into it, you should get enough laughs. But, you're searching for a certain amount of laughs in a short period of time, and you got to play off of everything that you're doing. It's got to be one of the hardest things to do, no doubt. I certainly don't think I'd ever even attempt to do it. I do, though, believe you would be fantastic at it. Just a lot of the animation and stuff is great, but maybe we'll work together on some punchlines, and we'll get you in front of a crowd one day.
Yeah, that might be it.
You need a good writer. That's all you need.
Right, and I know it's funny, but knowing what's funny and being able to craft funniness is very different. As much as I've been able to write lyrics and songs in my life, it's still very different, man. And I just have never attempted it for some reason. Maybe I just resigned to the fact that, like I said, it's just something I had never tried. And, responding to a heckler, I think might be something that would be easy for me to do as well. And might get a little fucking vicious, actually, if I'm being honest. I feel like I get myself in a lot of trouble in that manner. But, there's other comedians too, man. Like I was saying, there's genres. We've got like the pothead sort of comedy that Mitch Hedberg exemplified, that a lot of people shared, that I find Stephen Wright to fall in that category. And this man right here, the man, the myth, the legend, Bill Hicks, who would openly talk about LSD and mushroom trips and part of his comedy, and try and clue you into things that you might not want to hear about the government trying to fool you or trick you, or maybe teachers not really being what they say they are. And the reason why they're taking this out of schools is because they're trying to control you. Like, he was a little manic in some way, but I loved him because he was so fucking smart, man. And what he said might have been a little far-fetched for some to understand, but I always believe what he was saying, man. I never felt like Bill Hicks ever told me a lie in his stand-up comedy. He was an absolute legend. Another one gone just really, really early. And I don't know, man. Comedians, like I said, they sort of have, all comedic people have a way of turning to substances in some way, simply because, they're looking for the escape. And maybe sometimes the stage doesn't always give that to them. Or even if it does, you're not on stage 24 hours a day. You're maybe an hour a day. And then, so how do you fill that sort of rush of feelings that you get on stage when you're not there? It's usually filled with alcohol and drugs, or
also depends on where, a lot of times, where you're getting your courage from to be there, and maybe also where you're coming up with a lot of your stuff. And if you find that happens when you're in a certain state, then maybe that's why you're doing it. And you feel like you get your material better this way. You feel more comfortable. You're ready to get in front of people. It takes the edge off, whatever it may be. I mean, I get nervous before I come onto this podcast, and I'm sitting at my desk that I sit at every single day. But, whenever you're going to do anything, you're going to perform in any way, you're going to get nervous. And sometimes it does take those types of things to really calm people down enough to be able to get out there and do it. Look what Richard Pryor admitted to, so many years after he had all of his problems. And there's so many more that didn't admit to them, and we lost as well because of that. Well, what is this? There's like a whole book on the bottom of our screen. All of a sudden.
Can't imagine he's been going off on something. I don't know. I was trying to read it, but damn, I got a show to do.
I don't know what to tell you, my friend. There's like a book there. I did see something about Carrot Top and Gallagher, which, I mean, I honestly, Carrot Top, And Gallagher, though, for some reason I liked. I don't know. I lived in Tampa. Was he from Tampa? I don't know, because it was like I feel like he was always playing in Tampa. So
I
when I
feel like
was
he
there,
was a North Florida guy. I think he might have
right,
been. Yeah.
I saw so many watermelon smashing things. I mean, it was funny. It was all right. It was different. It's a different kind of comedy.
My stepfather Tom was the one that sort of got me into comedy. He actually sat me down and listened. I listened to Carlin, and Red Fox and a lot of other comedians at the time. And he got me into him. He got me into a lot of the comedy that I was lucky to be exposed to at an early age. So by the time Eddie Murphy came around, I had already had a foundation laid for me. And Eddie Murphy just kind of fucking kicked that over and was like fucking, dropping F-bombs and shit, like making fun of Bill Cosby because he didn't curse. Like that shit was genius to me, dude. And then his reaction to telling Richard Pryor, "Would you tell him to suck my dick?" Like it was just, I don't even know, man. One thing I do like with comedians is callbacks and being able for them to reference a joke they said earlier, not always at the end. I find that a little cheesy when a callback happens as like the last joke of the night. And I'm like, oh, great. And then they leave. Like, that's my time tonight, guys. I fucked you there. I like callbacks. So I like their act honed hard enough and smooth and strong enough to that they have the ability to do like multiple callbacks in a stand-up session, which is pretty freaking hard to do for most comedians. But
as long as they're doing it in a manner where they're at least changing what the ultimate punchline is. If you're just kind of bringing back the same stuff because it's getting laughs, then that's really just kind of like stretching more than anything else.
And the good ones are the ones that are unexpected. Like, I didn't expect that to happen. Like the good callbacks are the ones that don't fit in a joke that you didn't expect it to fit in. And
there you go.
And again, that's crafting, man. To me, that just shows me you are not just a guy who did a bump of coke in the bathroom to get some courage to go on stage, and you're saying funny shit in between your fucking paranoid jitters. Like, it shows me you actually honed all this, and that's what I want to see.
I think the best thing a stand-up comedian can do when they come out on stage is hit on that very first punch. That first punchline's got to hit hard. That joke's got to hit. You got to set everybody up to be ready to listen to the rest of what you got to say, and then the next important one is going to be the very last joke. Because they're going to remember the last joke more than anything else. That's the one they're going to tell everybody, obviously. When they say, "Hey, I saw this comedian, it was really good," they're going to tell you the last joke they heard, because that's generally the one you're going to remember. So don't screw up in the middle. Hit on the first joke. Make that last one great. And you got a perfect show. That's all you got to do. Be a great comedian. It's super easy.
I got to tell you this. When it comes to the craft of crafting, the craft of laughter, there's one comedian that I have, and I'm going to say this right now. Listen, I love Eddie Murphy. I'll have the carafe of laughter. I love Eddie Murphy. I always will. Richard Pryor. I will always give those guys respect. The thing is comedy evolves just like music evolves. So while I tell you right now I'm a massive Slipknot fan, it does not mean that I'm still not a Led Zeppelin fan who's got me into rock and Kiss. I'm still a fan. So having said all that, so far at this point in my life, I think my all-time favorite comedian is this guy right here.
Oh, wow.
I mean, so here's the deal. What Anthony Jeselnik does for me is he's able to mix intelligent crafted jokes to where you do not know what he's about to say as the punchline. It just doesn't work that way. He is so much smarter than his audience is. And for me to say that is insane, because I normally can sort of follow where a guy's going with his comedy. This guy finds a way to tell you in 5 different ways that he loves dropping babies that are handed to him. Like he has dark shit, but he just packages it in this very comedic thing. And to paraphrase one of his jokes, and he's like, I wonder if I ever have it in me to kill someone, to take somebody's life. And then I remember, oh yeah, Cindy. Like, and then it's just like you have to find a way to connect the joke and the punchline yourself with him. And a lot of his jokes fly over people's heads, but the times that we've seen him, which has been, well, I think we only got to see him live, but I've seen all of his specials. He is by far one of the best joke writers in the entire existence of comedy. The way that he writes jokes in my eyes, and him and this man, Bill Burr, to me, are the two top comedians of our time right now.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't argue with Bill Burr for sure. I'm not as familiar though with the other guy. I would also argue Dave Chappelle. I know he's an easy one to say, but dude, come on, Chappelle's hilarious, man. That's great comedy right there, always with that guy. And talk about great writing. That's another one that can do that too.
That baby selling nickel bags, man. Oh my God, I was screaming when I heard that skit. Baby, what are you doing on the street? Can I sell some weed? Like, oh my God, dude. Like, I remember, oh my God. Every one of his specials has been fucking gold, man. Every single one. And you know, you can see his evolution of stand-up after, you know, like there's skinny Dave Chappelle, and then there's now Dave Chappelle, because he's definitely not a skinny motherfucker anymore. Stocky. But he still has that. It's still Dave, man. And but the thing about Dave is he's so fucking smart, man. So he appeals to people in a lot of different ways. He appeals to people who just want to hear that flashbang quick humor and his watching his reactions and his animations. And then there's people who understand that there's a lot of intelligence behind what he's trying to say, and there's often layered stuff coming out of that man's mouth. Right.
No, he's a beast. His humor is great. What's on top of that, though, it's not just the way he delivers his humor. His facial expressions are priceless, and there's only certain people can do this. I feel like it's kind of a born with it type of thing. But his facial expressions, he doesn't have to say words sometimes. He just makes an expression, and you're dying, you're laughing. That alone just tells you how much a comic sells himself as being a comedian. I mean, Dave Chappelle could never do any type of serious role. I mean, you have been typed, you are a absolute comedian in everything you do. So even in some of the skits he puts together where he tries to be serious, it's just that much more fun.
Yeah, he was in Blue Streak, right? Like, he was at the very beginning of Blue Streak with Martin Lawrence being part of that, and that was sort of a serious role. But he was like a crackhead or a crackhead thief or something at the time, and it was sort of serious. But he was saying funny shit. So he didn't. I don't think he ever did anything serious. Why would he? It's not his fucking wheelhouse.
Yeah, you just don't do that kind of stuff. It's not going to work. You know, everybody's got their thing. There's your boy.
Yeah, how do you feel about George Lopez? Let me tell you, man. When I was living in Texas, I feel like that's sort of when I was more exposed to him, and it might have been because of the major Mexican population out there that I had a lot of friends that turned me on and said, "You got to listen to this guy." And obviously, he was huge, but I'm a big fan of that Mexican culture comedy for some reason, man. I don't know what to say, man. It's fun. Besides the fact that it's funny as shit, it's just that. And I also got to say. And historically, ethnic comedians, people of color, have done a great job making fun of the average Caucasian. There's really nobody who fucking does it better than George Lopez, especially when he starts like, "Oh my God, my daughter Dakota," and it just the way he does it, like, "Oh my God," like it's just he does fucking white people so well, dude, and it's such a caricature of like the average like Becca and Chad, you know what I mean? Like, but he just does it so fucking good. And obviously, there's a lot of pride and Mexican pride in his comedy, but that's a beautiful fucking thing too. And it's just always trying to find ways to show comparisons between all the different races, but laugh at every single one of them without making you feel he's siding with any of them, other than obviously the Mexican.
Why do white people always get depicted as like this either uppity, oh my God type people, or just like really dumb hicks?
Yeah, I don't know. There's like
no in between there. It's like we're gonna go this way or we're gonna go here.
I'll tell you.
This is how we can explain white people to you, like this or like this.
I believe those are two that are easier to imitate than just your average white guy.
All right.
So I think that's the way that is. It's like I can do like, oh my God, Becca, that's like so crazy. Like you can do that, or then. Yeah, and then you've got like just oh my God, like that guy Chad, like
Here we are.
Those, yeah, and those are funnier. It's funnier
Oh, yeah.
than like, yo, dude, what's going on, dude? Like, that's not that funny. It's more true, but it's not as funny.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good
at
answer.
least in my opinion. I don't
Thanks
know.
for the
That's what I
explanation.
think.
Appreciate it.
That's just a fucking opinion. I didn't answer shit. I just told you how I felt. How do you feel about this man? How do you feel about Joe Rogan?
I think he's a jackass, but he can be funny. And I mean, he eats bugs and stuff.
Have you seen any of his stand-up shows?
No, honestly, I've never watched any stand-up of Joe Rogan before.
I've seen him live. I think Jordana, I've seen him 3 times live.
Mm-hmm.
He's an absolute fucking machine. He's a riot. He is insane. It is impossible for me, and I guess because comedy is a very personal thing. We all have our brand. For me, seeing him live is a fucking treat, man, because he's so frenetic. He's just so he so believes what he's saying. It makes you believe what he's saying as well. But obviously, he's telling lies most of the night because that's what comedy is. It's just bullshit to make you laugh, but you believe in it because he's so crazy and bug-eyed, and the way that you hear him on his podcast or have seen him and the Amazing News Radio or anything else he might have done is completely different than his stand-up. I urge anyone who might hate the man to at least watch his stand-up and be like, realize that he's just like, he loves taking shrooms and trips out and smokes weed and talks about shit that you want to hear as someone who's a fan of current comedy. So give it a shot, man. Rogan's pretty good, man. He's one of the best out there, in my opinion, man. Who do you feel is one of the greatest out there right now?
No, that's why I still am going to go with Chappelle as far as my favorite right now, like straight away. I mean, that's my guy. I mean, he's just always been able to make me laugh consistently. And, with Murphy, it was, he put out Delirious, he put out Raw, and they're hilarious, but with the guys like today, and of course with what the type of shows you can often sketch comedy, all this other kind of stuff, you can put out so much more. Chappelle's catalog is ridiculous. It's just insane. There's just so much. And I feel like that alone, you've got to give this guy props for this. I mean, to write any kind of comedy, just to write one sketch that's funny, he just consistently comes back with more and more of it. I know he's got help too, but still, at the end of the day, that guy has to make, everything kind of work for his shows, and does to flawlessly to me. I mean, every part of it is funny, from the way things are set up to his delivery, to his tone, to his pitch, to how he's able to relate with the audience, his eye contact, all of it. When you just try to break down a comedian in general, this is one of the most relaxed individuals you'll see on stage. And take him away from his sketch comedy or anything like that. Just put him on stage by himself with a microphone, and you really see that at that time more than anything else. I don't mean to keep going back to him, but if you ask, for today, that's the guy, and there's plenty of other guys in the past that I think we lost too soon that we could have seen so much more from. I know we talked about Mitch Hedberg. I think Bernie Mac is another guy like that. I absolutely loved Bernie Mac. I think that's another guy because of his intelligence, would have been able to do so much more, even beyond, just stand-up comedy.
Greg Giraldo. I miss Greg Giraldo, man.
Right.
He was pretty witty too, man. He said he was real funny shit, man. He was able to sort of toe that line with like Italian and Hispanic and sort of play between a lot of those different things and a lot of those different races. But he was, he's gone too soon, man. There's a lot out there, man. Fuck, there
really is. I mean, even Chris Rock and Kevin Hart, I know they're more popular today in today's circles. I'm not a huge Kevin Hart fan. Chris Rock's first couple of stand-ups are absolutely hilarious. I honestly haven't seen a lot of his more recent stuff, but he seems.
Where's the other condom? Where's the other condom? Yeah, that was fucking gold, man.
Hilarious. Hilarious. So he's got to be up there with what he's done and still doing. I mean, he's still relevant. I'm just, I'm not up on what he's done recently, but these guys are still out there doing this stuff, and it's a very tough job to do. It's hard to get out there and do this kind of comedy in front of people like this, and I have a lot of respect for it. I love going to comedy clubs. I got a couple friends on the local circuit that I never go to see, and I feel terrible about, and I really should do it more often. And just seeing some at local comedy clubs anyway just really opens you up to some new guys. Ralphie May was someone who I really liked a lot. I thought he was hilarious. He died a few years ago. And just some of these just younger comics that have been on the circuit forever, but just eventually kind of make their rounds when they finally get there. Last Comic Standing was a show that was on NBC for a while. I used to love that show. I mean, I guess not enough people watched it, but it was a really neat way to see a bunch of comics. Most of those guys are all been on the circuit in one way or another for a while, but it was neat to see them all compete in that type of a competition. I thought that was a really cool show. I would have loved to see something like that continue.
It went to another channel and sort of died off. They had many seasons of it, but it was out of the public view because it was at different places. We hunted it out for a couple of years. Pepitone was on there. Pescatelli was there. There was a few, Josh Blue, that I think sort of came out and blew up out of that.
Yes, he did.
There's a good handful of them that made it out of there. So it wasn't like, like The Voice or some of these other competitions that the winners don't go on to do a fucking thing ever again in their life.
Right.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that because there's someone I have to mention in terms of a stand-up comedian who was actually introduced to us in a different way. This guy single-handedly did so much to expose new stand-up comedians to me, as well as other stand-up comedians that might have been around for a while that we haven't heard of, and threw them on a game show and made them compete against each other for points that never meant a fucking thing. And that is one of my favorite comedians, Chris Hardwick. This TV show at midnight, which when it stopped, broke me and my wife's heart. This show was where you could go on and see Ron Funches go up against Doug Benson in a fucking stoner trivia contest. The show was actually funded by Thomas Lennon, who was from the state, which branched out to Reno 911 and all the amazing movies that we know from that camp. But Chris Hardwick brought a lot of current comedians to expose to me that I might not have ever known about. And the show just got canceled. I really don't know why. And I know people were fighting to get it back, but there was just something about that. And I urge people to look some of those episodes up. They're just so fucking hilarious. And he geeked out. It was all very pop culture and, tweet of the day. And it was very relevant for the time, which was I think about 5 or 6 years ago is when it stopped or something like that. Hardwick did a lot for stand-up comedy and he was a massive fan. And we have actually seen him 1 or 2 times, and he's really, really good in the stand-up setting that people might not really believe. But he was great, man.
Not familiar with him or that show, but I'll check it out though.
I believe the dating game that used to be on MTV, Singled Out, right? I think that's what he was the host of, or Remote Control. I don't know, one of those two. He's from one of those shows. Yeah, he's from one of those shows. He was on there. Yeah, that guy right there. Yeah, he was from that too. So he had a weird start and then went through, I guess, this odd phase. He was actually the guy who got his head scalped off in House of a Thousand Corpses with Rob Zombie.
Oh, okay.
At the very beginning of that movie, he was part of those guys who went to Captain Spaulding's House of Horrors.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah, very, very crazy. But
I like that movie.
Yeah, man. I've got tickets to see Bill Burr here in about a month, and then in the same week, George Lopez. I'm very stoked about that. We had a chance to see Nate Bargatze. Or not Nate Bargatze, I'm sorry, Bert Kreischer at Red Rocks. I don't really know. I think I was leaving that day, but he sold out Red Rocks. And I really wanted to see him, man. He's quite funny, man. He's a different sort of less crafted, more of a storytelling stand-up comedian, but he's absolutely huge right now. And we missed that opportunity, but oh well. I'm gonna see Bill Burr at Red Rocks. So who gives a shit?
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Good stuff. Steve Harvey, Michael Frey says, yes, sir. Steve Harvey is another one that's just an intellectual that's able to turn a lot of just everyday stuff around too, and he does that with a lot of family stuff, which is interesting for people who have families.
Is there a stand-up comedian that gets on your nerves that you can't stand?
Yeah, there is. Gilbert Godfrey.
Ow! Yeah. I put one thing in one hand. Yeah. I think that was on purpose. If you hear him talk without doing that shtick, it's quite amazing to hear him use his regular voice.
I know. I don't really mean that. He's actually not. The voice though did annoy the hell out of me, to be honest. But he was a genius though in what he did. So I don't know. I don't know if I could say just one that comes offhand right now that I just absolutely despised. I give them all a lot of respect for getting out there and trying this stuff, and anyone that could stick around this industry for a little while and just even have somewhat of a name for yourself, that you're doing an incredible job. So yeah, I can't really look at any that I'd say. Like, there might be stuff that's just not my kind of humor and stuff like that, but you know, there's I'm good with all of it. You know, the wittier the better. That dry wit is something that I've always appreciated because I've been brought up with my father who was like that, and you know, I always felt like he could do great deadpan comedy. He would be fantastic like that. Another one who did good deadpan comedy who died today, Norm Macdonald. We got to mention as well, since he did die today, and he did get it. His roots are in stand up, so it's this is another great Canadian actor, and I think some of his most popular work for a lot of us is those SNL Weekend Reports that I think he just brought a different look to, you know, coming out of the Chevy Chase era and stuff. More interesting.
I've seen Kevin Nealon was kind of like that. I've seen him once. Kevin Nealon's pretty funny.
Yes,
from that same camp.
Right.
But yeah, he did some comedy that was sometimes too funny. I think that's the reason why he got fired from that from the Weekend News, or because they just thought he wasn't funny. But I think everyone else thought he was. And it's just that people thought that he wasn't getting laughs, but he just was too smart in some occasions. He was saying shit that people weren't getting, and they wanted to.
Norm Macdonald you're talking about? Yeah. Norm did. I mean, a lot of Norm stuff too is he was just so obsessed with OJ. He was so over. Oh yeah, Burt Reynolds, hilarious. He was so obsessed with OJ. He had the dancing Itos as part of the things he would do, which was Judge Ito in that case. And he supposedly was getting a lot of pushback from NBC on the way he was pushing this thing about OJ being guilty. And supposedly that was a big part of it, surprisingly. But I do agree with you. He would, a lot of these guys obviously on SNL would do this anyway and just kind of shoot from the hip from time to time, and that didn't always go over well with some of the top brass, but Norm was just well ahead of what those guys were doing anyway. But he certainly carved himself out there, and was also a writer on Roseanne. I didn't even realize that even before then. So it's a interesting dude. Lost too early again. 61 years old, man. Poor dude. It's terrible.
Go ahead, folks. Go out there on YouTube. Comedians doing impressions of Norm Macdonald. It's amazing, especially when they're on his show doing it directly to him. Yeah, it's really good. David Spade does a really good Norm Macdonald. There's some that you'd be surprised, but
right.
That it really sucks. That's too young, and he did hide it pretty well because he had a show. Yeah, he had a show and was just doing it, and we could tell he was getting older, and he was changing facially, and
right.
And I think we all knew he wasn't well, but he certainly fucking soldiered through and did all those podcasts, and having all the comedians on doing that was amazing. But that's who he is. He probably died with a smile on his face for all we know, man. That just seems like something that we would have just assumed. But yeah, he had cancer. What kind of cancer did he fight? I don't remember.
I don't either. They just said he did it privately. Didn't tell a lot of people about it, just did his own thing, and, just fought the fight, man. But yeah, that was, hey, it fit. It was on our day of stand-up comedians, and, he cut his teeth in the industry and stand-up comedy. So rest in peace, Norm.
Yeah, we came up with the idea or I should say you came up with the idea of this show well before we even found out about Norm. It just sort of happened that way. It was kind of crazy, but I think it's horrible, man. But I urge everyone to, and especially in this time, and anybody that might have lost someone recently or is going through hard times themselves, man, go to Netflix, go somewhere you can watch some stand-up comedy, man. I don't know, man. It does wonders, man. When me and my wife are in dark spots in our time, in our head, being able to go and listen to someone else just sort of ramble and do impressions, you could just forget about it. That's the reason why we love going to see live concerts as well as you do, and live comedy. It's all the same thing. It's an organic in-person experience, man. And I urge everyone to just listen to some stand-up comedy, watch it. Get it on a different medium. Maybe just listen to it instead of watching it. There's another way to listen to comedy, and that's another interesting way to do it. Russ, what's up, man? Coming in a little late. Good to see you. What about Bob Saget? It's absolutely fucking hilarious, dude. Yeah, because of the juxtaposition of his TV character versus because he basically came out with his comedy not long after that show had dissolved, and. Him just saying the word dick was just like, oh my God, but he goes so fucking far.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. He's funny.
His comedy is worth it. Yeah. Yes. 100%, man.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh shit. Anything else you wanted to bring up with stand-up comedy before we get out of here, man?
No, I mean, I was just happy we could talk about a lighthearted topic today and something that we could look at and laugh. And again, doing research for the show today and just going through and seeing some of this stuff and just laughing my ass off at some old Carlin and Red Fox and just some of the classics from prior. There's so much out there, man. It's really cool. It seriously is, just to take a little bit of time and do it. And you'll find yourself just dying when you see some of this stuff. A lot of the newer comics that are out there today that we talked about, some of these guys tonight, I'm always hesitant. I'm kind of the old school guy, whatever, I don't know. But there's some really, Nate Bargatze, absolutely hilarious. Bill Barr, these guys are hilarious. If you've never heard of these guys before, as I hadn't over just maybe the last few months that I've learned about them, they're hilarious, both of those in particular. Check some new stuff out. You really got to, and support these guys. I mean, it's just, this stuff's hilarious. It really is. Got to laugh.
And don't give them shit on Twitter. And you people who are complaining about what comedians say during their routines need to fucking get a life, man. Oh, if you're watching a stand-up comedian and you get offended by what he says, dude, you might not have a sense of humor. They lied to you one day. Yeah. They said you were funny, but you. Yeah. Watch another one, right? Yeah, exactly. Watch Nate Bargatze.
Because he won't offend you all too much, unless you just don't like family kind of things. And I don't know what he does. I'm not making it sound funny, but it really is. So check him out.
Oh, Erwin, Patrice O'Neill, my man. Thank you so much, man. Rest in peace, Patrice, dude. Patrice was fucking hilarious. He was great on The Office, and he had very few lines on The Office.
Right.
Absolutely amazing. Oh, my God. All right. Well, folks, we thank you so much for hanging out with us at the Casually Serious podcast. We, again, as Ken Man said, we just wanted to kind of have something that we could talk about that will conjure up some memories of laughter and fun. Things can be real heavy. I think a lot of folks right now are suffering with the sort of after effects of COVID. With the second wave coming, it's sort of bringing me back to, oh my God, I remember when this sucked in 2020. And you've got to stay vigilant, keep moving forward with that positive attitude, and listen to some stand-up comedy, man, or go see a concert, man. Put on a fucking mask. Do what you got to do, man, and make sure you take care of yourself and make sure you take care of everybody around you, man. And if somebody falls in the mosh pit, pick them up.
Definitely.
Ken, man, love you like a brother.
Love you too,
another great episode. We'll see you next week, man. We'll come up with something else to talk about. If you guys at any time, go visit our Facebook page, the Casually Serious Podcast. Leave us some ideas if you want to. If you have ideas about a show, for God's sake, do it, man. We struggle sometimes to come up with ideas, but we always do. Happens. Yeah, we eventually will. So, ladies and gentlemen, have a great night. We love you. TCSP out.